Hello and welcome once again to the ILC's YouTube channel. Today we're going to take another look at quote sandwiches, the proper method of integrating quotes into your writing. This time we'll review the proper format of quote sandwiches, then go through a few practice exercises which will give you a chance to try your hand at the process and also provide a few more examples for future reference. If you saw our last video, this should look familiar. These are the three parts of the quote sandwich. The top, which consists of the introduction, author's name, source title, context. The center of the sandwich, which is the signal phrase, pronoun and reporting verb to introduce the quote itself, and the parenthetical citation. Finally, there's the bottom of the sandwich, which consists of your explanation of the quote's relevance. Here's an example of the upper bread. In his article, Mute in an English-Only World, Chang-Rae Lee discusses the difficulties his mother faced as a non-fluent English speaker. As you can see, this sentence introduces the article title, the author's name, and the overall context. Chang-Rae Lee was discussing his mother's problems as she learned English. This is information necessary for us to fully understand the quote that will follow it. Here's an example of the center. He states, "When my mother did have to speak in public, say, at the window of the post office, her readied speech would stall, freeze, sometimes altogether collapse." Page 87. As you can see here, the signal phrase uses he to refer back to Chang-Rae Lee, along with the reporting verb states. One thing to remember is that your reporting verb will always be in present tense if you're referring to a written work. The quote uses the author's exact words, except where it uses brackets to clarify. The original quote used the phrase, "when she did, say," which is too unclear for an effective quote. The brackets identify who she is and what she did. A parenthetical citation also shows which page of the source the quote can be found on. Here's an example of the bottom of the sandwich. Due to her inability to speak conversational English, everyday tasks were often impossible for Lee's mother. This made it very difficult for her to navigate life in America alone. It clarifies what the quote means. Lee's mother was unable to carry on conversations in English, and gives the implications of the quote, that this lack of proficiency made life very difficult for her. Now it's time for some practice. On each of the following slides, you'll see a paragraph topic, the title of an article, the name of the author, and a quote from that author's work, along with the page number on which it appears, and the context in which that quote originally occurs. With this information, create a full quote sandwich, introduction, quote, explanation, for these hypothetical paragraphs. Now, don't worry if your answer is a bit different from ours. Writing a quote sandwich out of context can be a bit difficult. As long as you have the three main parts, though, you're on the right track. Here's the information for your first practice example. Pause the video, take a look, and then try to sort this information into a quote sandwich. I'll give you some time to pause now. This is one potential quote sandwich for this example. For each of these, the upper bread will appear in blue, the center in purple, and the bottom in red. In the article, Once Upon a Time in Laredo, Mimi Swartz gives an example of how group membership can connect people. She writes, "The colonial pageant and ball became a way to connect the city's most eligible belles with its most eligible bachelors." 76. While other groups may not form for the purpose of connecting members, all groups present opportunities to make new friendships or connections. The introduction introduces the author, article, and context. The signal phrase is "she writes." We have the quote and the parenthetical citation, and we have a sentence explaining the relevance of this pageant and ball to group networking as a whole. Here's practice example number 2. Go ahead and pause the video once more. Take some time to sort this information into a quote sandwich as described before. Go ahead and pause. Here is solution number 2. In her article, Sex, Lies, and Conversation, Deborah Tannen discusses the differences in male and female communication styles. She claims these systematic differences in childhood socialization make conversations between women and men like cross-cultural communication, page 72. In other words, communication across gender lines is difficult because both participants come from separate cultural backgrounds as well. We follow the same overall structure here in the second example. We still use the phrase "in her article" to begin the introduction and follow the same general phrasing, though we're using claims as the reporting verb in our signal phrase. Tannen is making an argument, not simply reporting something. Here's the final practice example for this video. As before, pause the video now, write this information down, and take a few minutes to convert it into a quote sandwich. Go ahead and pause the video now. That's it for our examples, but in closing, let's review a few of the basics. Remember to introduce the author, as well as the article title, and the context of the quote. Remember to use a reporting verb, which should always be in present tense. State the quote, include the citation, and always, always, always remember to explain the significance. While the quote is important, you also have to remember that it's your paper, and it's your argument that needs to be heard. Hopefully these exercises were useful to you. Here's a list of the articles we used. Even in a video like this one, it's important to cite your sources and give them proper credit. That's all for this video. Thanks for watching, and have a great semester.